Hello, my name is Adrian McFarland, and this is my sales technique project. The topic that I picked for the sales technique project is tips for selling to medical professionals. The reason I've chose this topic is one, this is the field I want to go into, and I've actually had multiple days of shadowing one of my cousins that is already in the field. And second, I grew up in a household that was all around medicine. My mother's a physical therapist, and my dad's an athletic trainer. So as I was growing up, I was around my parents' friends, and they all tended to be doctors or medical professionals. I hope that you enjoy a few of my medical or tips here, and you can take them and apply them to your own sales field. But first, the research. I picked two different articles, both from the same website, which is plos.org. That stands for the Public Library of Science. The Public Library of Science focuses on all scientific and medical aspects. So if it has anything to do with those two things, they cover it. Then with the Public Library of Science journals, everything is peer reviewed and the studies are all peer reviewed. Moving forward, the first article that I found is the medical device sales representatives, and the second one is the pharmaceutical sales representatives. Now, these two are the two biggest and most controversial sales representatives in the field. And I think that the two articles that I found goes into very good detail as to why they are controversial and how that we can fix this as professionals going into the field and being the next generation. First, I want to go over establishing prospects and kind of how the etiquette works of when you establish these prospects. Starting out with reaching out to leads in a professional way. This is very important with medical professionals. First of all, your subject line, if you're reaching out to them in an email standpoint. With an email, you want to have a very good subject line. It's something along the lines of Adrian McFarland from Rosetta Genomics. I'd love to sit down and schedule a meeting, or make sure that you have like your name and the exact thing that you want to do. If not, the doctor may see it as just junk mail and delete it, and you will not be able to reach out to him. Moving forward in the medical conferences, these are extremely important. I actually added a picture of one of the bigger conferences for pharmaceuticals and pharmaceutical representatives. This right here is extremely important for gaining new leads and new prospects. So when you go there, you need to branch out, wear whatever shirt, company representative, company business cards to bring with you, and to try and pick up new prospects in that sense. The biggest thing about scheduling meetings is, remember, these doctors have patients, and the patients want to be seen, and the doctors want to take care of their patients. They don't have a ton of time to meet with us as representatives, so we want to work around their schedule. The best times is see if you can meet them for lunch. Lunch meetings are perfect for doctors. They usually have an hour in the middle of the day, and you don't want to take up the whole hour, but if you could schedule maybe a 15 to 30, even 45 is a little long, but if you could schedule that meeting and take up a little bit of their time and be able to pitch your product in a quick way, that's very important. And like I said, confronting the professional in the seminar conference area, you want to be as professional as you can and try to leave out a lot of just common talks between you and the doctor. Rather, you want to be more professional and keep it strictly to what you have for them. Moving forward, visiting doctors. Visiting doctors is huge. And this is what one of the articles went into. And it was the article that's more focusing on the pharmaceutical reps, but this has to do with everybody and their sales representatives. The sales representatives, you want to be very frequent first when visiting the doctors. When you visit the doctors, the frequency, the more often you see them, is actually better customer service, which I will get into later on. But the more frequent you see them, the more they remember your name, they remember the face, and it actually becomes easier to have a common conversation and build more rapport with them. So that's a very key thing, and it also links to the article about pharmaceutical. As a pharmaceutical sales rep, you tend to get more orders and less generic orders, more brand name orders for your company, the more you see the doctor and the more you can go ahead and see them. The ethics of this is there's very strict rules on pharmaceuticals and many other sales representatives. It varies for each different one. You have to make sure you're following the rules as to what you can do for the doctor and what you can't do for the doctor. You can't bring a doctor 2 tickets for an all-inclusive vacation down to the Bahamas for him from your company. That's not allowed. But if you bring him a lunch or bring him or her a lunch, that is completely allowed, and actually I would recommend it. I think coming into a doctor's office empty-handed when you're taking up their lunchtime is quite rude, to be honest. And growing up with my family, bringing in lunch to these doctors or for the office actually allows you to build rapport with more than just the doctor. You can build rapport with the nurses that are in the office, and building rapport with them is actually very important because there may be days where the doctor is too busy to meet with you, but if you're coming in on like an every other day basis, you can just check with the main nurse for that doctor, and she or he will know if they need anything or if anything has gone wrong recently with your product. Moving forward, in the operating room itself, so this doesn't have to be a surgical, this could be just in a normal doctor's office. It really doesn't matter if you have selling something like diagnostics or if you're actually in the room with them with the medical device. So in the sense that if it was just medical devices, if you're in the surgical room, there's very strict procedures. You don't really have to worry about it. They're gonna make sure that you're clean, you're wearing your mask, your gown, covering your hands, and not bringing anything into the room. There's also etiquette that goes along with this setting. It's tended to be not quiet, but very professional. You need to act in a professional manner to where you're not in the way, you're more just watching and making sure that your product works in the right way. More so in the actual room for pharmaceuticals, where you may be in the room where they're taking samples from a patient, or you're seeing how the steps work for them to utilize your product to package it away and send it away, or if they're administering the pharmaceuticals. So the biggest thing out of all of this that you should take out of this is patient confidentiality. Patient confidentiality is of the utmost importance in the doctor's office. Patient confidentiality is anything that's stated between the doctor and the patient does not leave that room. It is 100% confidential unless the patient is to hurt themselves, but then again, that is not a sales representative's job to report. That's the doctor's job to report. You are simply in there to listen and not repeat anything that you've heard, and if the patient has any questions directly for you about the pharmaceutical that's being administered or the test that's going to be administered, it's a great way to be in there and answer questions and show your knowledge and show the doctor that you know a lot about your product. And maybe the doctor knows the answer because he asked you that question, but just being able to directly talk with the patient is very, very good thing. But like I said, the biggest thing being in the room, patient confidentiality, and making sure that you're all ears and you don't repeat anything that you hear. Next, just being a medical sales representative. First, we as a whole in this profession are viewed in a very negative light. Since we're viewed in a very negative light, we need to change that. The reason why we're viewed in a negative light is that previous to a lot of laws being enacted of how we should act and the things that we can and can't do, there was a lot of representatives that would expense the wrong things and hide purchases maybe for themselves and when they were putting on a company card. Same thing with how we interact with doctors. They would bring a doctor 2 tickets for an all-inclusive vacation down to the Bahamas or maybe to Europe. And they could do that because because the company made enough money, or the pharmaceutical company had enough money to do that, to gain a new prospect, to gain a new client, or to gain a large client. You could and this is why we could be viewed in a negative way. Why this changes what we should do? This changes the way we need to act. We need to act by the book, how the ethics of being a sales representative is. This is this is a huge sales representative tip for anybody. And we need to act by ethics. Our moral conscience inside is the best way to go, because you know if you're doing something wrong, and you know by what you were told in your orientation of what not to do. When you cross that line, that's when our conscience needs to come in and go ahead and tell us what the right thing is to do and to not do the wrong thing. Finally, how can we change this view? Well, like I said, act by ethics. Also, when you develop a good relationship with a doctor, you don't soil it, or you don't go to another doctor and maybe offer something better because they would bring a bigger purse of contract. Or make sure that you're very fair with everything that you do and how you treat everyone. Moving forward, the most important thing, customer service. And this is where we kind of this is the center, and all of the other things that we talked about in tips wraps around it. Very first, this is the most important thing. If you go into the doctor's office, you need to be in a great mood. It may be the worst day of your life. Your puppy may have died or something like that morning, and you're just in a really upset and sad mood. When you go into that office, you need to bring in a manner of excitement, where you don't want to go in and be like upset, I brought in my pharmaceutical drug, I think it'll be okay. No, you need to come in and bring excitement, like, this drug is the best drug I've ever brought in here because it does this, or it can cure this, or this diagnostic test is better than anything else that you guys have had because it has a faster turnaround. Or you just need to bring in a manner of like absolute excitement, how you love your product. And that goes along with if you're going into a surgical room. You can't go into a surgical room being upset or sad or kind of down on yourself. It's more or less you need to go in with an upbeat manner. And this is where we go back to the articles too. The articles stated how how a medical device sales representative, when they're in the surgical room, and the doctor kind of relies on them when they bring in a very upbeat personality, when they bring in something positive, the doctors tend to rely on them for their knowledge and their knowledge of the product. And the same thing goes with the pharmaceutical sales. They stated in the research that they did that just over 40% of doctors, when you visit them frequently and you bring in good customer service and you bring in them cold hard facts that are true, they tend to order from the name brand pharmaceutical more than just ordering a generic. So moving forward, what is good customer service? Good customer service is when there's a problem, you fix it right away. If a doctor calls you, and it doesn't matter if it's your biggest contract, your smallest contract, or your mediocre contract that's just cranking out numbers for you each month. If they call you with a problem, you really should drop everything you're doing in that sense and clear up that problem, because building rapport with a customer is the best way to do it is when problems arise and you fix it immediately, because then they trust you for when maybe another problem were to arise, you fix that problem again. Lastly, why good customer service is important. Good customer service is very important, like I said, to build rapport and build a very strong relationship with your customers. Let's say you switch jobs and go to a different company, but these doctors know that you bring this high level customer service. They will switch with you if you're still doing the same drugs, or if you switch to a different medical device or something like that. You come back to them and they'll switch with you because they know the level of customer service that you get, and you can keep these purse of contracts. And that is the main thing I learned when I've done my shadowing experiences. I've shadowed people that bring in excellent customer service and an excellent attitude. And I've actually had a few doctors tell me this reason right here is why they stay with certain representatives, because they know they bring in a good attitude, they bring in real facts that they don't have to question if they're not real. And finally, they bring in a high level of customer service. They always can rely. If there's an issue with the product, they just call and it is a done deal and it is fixed. So I appreciate you listening to me today, and that is my sales technique project, and I hope you learned a few things and you can apply them when we're all graduated and working in the sales representative field. Thank you.